Thank you so much, Crashy and Lance. Violence waking up and choosing himself today. 11, 3, and 7. Congratulations, Professor. You did not let me down, and I proved I'm not a curse. So take that, Trix, and take that, Joey. But Trix,
I didn't say it.
Well, you picked the monkey, okay? So what did you think about game one? And tell us what we all saw.
I think that we saw a lot of Narbash dying. We saw a lot of North doing a lot early game and then just kind of getting outscaled. Like you mentioned, violence on that Grux just absolutely steamrolled in the off lane. Like, we don't see Grux that often, and the performance this game was incredible. Like, just so much damage pumping out of that off lane, just an absolute menace over there in every team fight. Normally, like, that's kind of the problem, is like we see Gruxes, they do a lot in lane, but then they don't really do a lot through the rest of the game. He managed to accumulate such a lead that wasn't even the case this game, and then by the time, the team fighting started, Professors was just so far ahead.
Yep, and that Grux was just on another level. But Joey, talk to us about the game.
Yeah, kind of as Trick said, like the Nutbash was just dying a lot. Kai'Mei was just like getting super aggro. Like the problem is that like in reality, I think R has like super solid strategy. They just have to play this fight slower, because as long as they keep the Nutbash alive and just keep him healing the Kai'Mei and Sevwalk, they can just really out-sustain the front line. The issue was just Nutbash kept getting picked off early, and then they're just forcing fights way too fast. So it just all in all didn't really play into the strategy that well at all, and then the Professors play into their stream strategy really, really well. So it's always just like a player skill diff right there. Like the Professors really just know how to execute, and all, which just fell flat in that game.
Yeah, you can't underestimate 55 scrims in 20 days, okay? But Trix, what does R&R need to do to secure the next victory, or else they're gonna get wiped out?
Yeah, I think R&R needs to invest more in a kind of safer support. It seems like Bartle really wants to go in. He was hitting his stunks. Very, very consistently. But just the positioning and the playstyle of Narbash, I don't think necessarily like suits what they were trying to do. And then I think that they need to get Akaram into a winning matchup. I think that, over there in the offlane, they've shown, hey, like I'm a great offlaner. I'm capable of carrying games on my own. We've seen it before, but just that particular matchup, the Sevrog into the Grux, we saw Violence kind of exploit that early game weakness from Sevrog and just run away with the game.
Yeah, and we kind of saw Sevrog being a ban in the first series, but Grux diff. But anything else you'd like to add, Joey, before we go into the draft?
Not at the moment. It's just like, I think Sevlog is not going to be as easy to pick, because Professors have a very solid answer to that in the form of Grux. So unless they ban Grux, they can't really pick Sevlog blind into not knowing what the offlaner is.
All right, let's go ahead and switch over to the draft. All right, Rest and Relaxation versus the Professors. We know North is such a dominant, player in this game. In early game, we saw what he was capable of. But Trix, do you think they're gonna target ban him this time around?
I don't think that you could target ban North. I think that his champion pool is just, he plays every character so well. We've seen him on the Kalari, we've seen him on the Feng Mao, we've seen him on the Rampage, we've seen him on the Chimera. It's trying to target ban him out would be pointless. I think that they need to focus their efforts onto somebody else. But once again, seeing the phase ban come out from Professors first, this has to be something that they've practiced. This has to be a strategy that they've come upon and said, hey, like, we think this is, the best thing. But it's so different than the banning strategy of pretty much every other team that we've seen.
Yeah, that phase ban seems like it's also talking to support, because phase support is kind of like, it can be like a super comfy pick, easy to play. So just taking out that equation can be really detrimental to the support for R&R. But we see the Victor ban coming out again. So definitely seems like it's very similar like bans coming into this game. Just Victor just taking off the table means they don't have to worry about Victor being flexed into the offlane jungle or support.
Yeah, I'm getting, just off of this, I'm getting flashbacks to that one series that we cast where we saw a team draft the same team kind of 2 games in a row and get annihilated both times. I think R&R, I'm confident that R&R is a little bit better than that, but it's just curious to see that the same thing happened 2 games in a row, and flashbacks already. The deck are coming out.
Yeah, the deck of pick. It's just RR has to figure out a different strat going to this, because at this rate, it's gonna be the same similar team comp, and then we saw what happened right there in the last game. So RR has to shake it up somehow with different picks going into the Professors this game.
Yeah, Crazy Fool Decker getting a lot of value, living in a lot of situations where any other character just straight up wouldn't, utilizing those rocket boots, utilizing that containment fence, all of the CC the Decker brings to the table to great results. Last game, we saw a lot of early game fights where, they're focusing the support, they're focusing Crazy Fool. I'm going to lose my mind, Joe.
Yeah, so we see Silverrock being picked once again. They know that Professor can literally pick up Grux again and just run over that Silverrock. So it's just like, are just repeating the same mistakes, or they're actually going to have some answer to that Grux if it's picked up? Because you just cannot let that Rhino just go in uncontested like last time.
This is... in the fighting game community, we call this a salty run back, where you just go like, nah, you got lucky. Like that wasn't a skill. Like I messed up. You didn't do good. I messed up. And I really hope that we're not seeing a salty run back right now, because I don't think that it was, R&R messed up. The Professors did really good. And the Countess pick?
That is spicy. I like that pick. Because there's an interesting thing going with Countess, is that Countess has actually been doing quite well in Scrim. So she's kind of like one of those sleeper picks that is trying to finally get to the surface in this PCC finals. She's just definitely a really high risk, high reward champion. And definitely from what we saw from Professor, they are very solid. They're very comfortable no matter what team comp they're going. So it seems like they know exactly what they want to do with that Countess pick, because if you do not know what you're doing with Countess falls flat. But if not, Countess is just going to really kind of win over the game if Professors can pilot her well.
Yeah, and she does offer a little bit of flexibility. Typically mid, she can be played into the offlane too, into that Sevarog. Sevarog takes time to scale, Countess takes time to scale, but Countess impacts the map, I think, a little bit earlier. I like that R&R is going ahead and picking up this Lieutenant Bellica. It brings some much needed hard CC that comes out really quick, can help peel the Countess off of their carry once they pick that up as well, and it offers that flexibility. With the Gideon already, this team is leaning heavily towards magic damage already. Like with the Gideon, with the Bellica, with the Sevarog, that's just a lot of magic damage coming out. And the Fang Mao ban against the Professors, that's interesting.
That is interesting, because I feel like at this point you just take Grux off the table, because I think they're disrespecting that pick again by the seams of it. I mean, I don't think Fame Out is once again like a high prior pick. I don't think Professors is gonna take the Fame Out, because they already have Countess, so they're definitely not gonna go for. They need some frontliner, is what I think Professors is gonna be trying to draft in the second half. So I'm not too sure about that Fame Out ban, but maybe it's someone on Professor's super crack on Fame Out, and they just scale of him more than Grux for some reason. But we see Chimera being banned, so I think that is a Countess jungle, because Countess is typically play in jungle in these scrims, so they're banning out the Chimera, so that Countess jungle just don't have to worry about that menace trying to invade her 24/7. So it's actually looking to be a very interesting picks going into the second half.
Yeah, taking North off of that Chimera, he was kind of the shining light, the saving grace for R&R last game. Getting him off of that, especially if you're planning on going Countess jungle, and after they banned the Fang Mao too, it really narrows down your chances of picking a strong character that can kind of shut down this Countess jungle. But Crunch might be it. This could be a Sevarog jungle. I know we've heard some talks of maybe Sevarog jungle isn't that he's not very popular, but he is a thing. And if they think this is a Countess offlane, we've seen Ock play the Crunch before, but North also a Crunch specialist, I would say. He's very good on the champion. Definitely top 5 Crunches in NA. So I don't want to see the Grux come out from Professors just for the sake of R&R.
And we do see the Gadget and Grux being picked up right here. I mean, even if that's like a Crunch offlane instead of a jungle, Grux is someone that can outscale the Crunch in the 1v1. So Grux is just one of those better picks, I would say, going to. It's definitely playing into that more high risk, high reward strategy. But we saw that Grux last game, we were able to pull off the strat really well. My only concern looking at the strat already is that they're not super beefy in the frontline department. Like that Grux may have to go more tank. So I'm not sure if Skyspell is going to be able to be fitted in this build. It just really depends on who exactly is going offline in this game, either the Crunch or the Sevarog.
Yeah, the Drongo pick coming out last, just an overall safe pick. We saw, Ooga Booga, Unga Bunga kind of utilizing the shrapnel cannon to get out of a lot of sticky situations. I would rather them not be in those situations to begin with, but with the Decker, it's hard to avoid that. Like you mentioned, swapping out the Greystone for the Countess takes away a lot of that beefy front line of the team and swaps it out for just straight damage. The Countess, if they can choose their engagements, get around the Bellica, get around the Gag Grenade or the Shrapnel Cannon, they're just going to assassinate one of these carries, and then I think Professors just kind of wipes all of these team fights.
Trix, you kind of mentioned that, if they're able to get on, RNR's team, if they can manage to weave and bob, the CC, but how can RNR go against the Professor's team comp?
I think as long as they can keep, from bleeding out too much in the laning phase, they have that Sevarog that can scale up incredibly well. But I think that we've mentioned it earlier, is Crunch is somebody that doesn't scale up super well. It kind of has a really strong early game, a really good mid game, and then falls off once you get towards those fourth and fifth items. So I think that they need to, pick good team fights, let the Sevarog kind of do his own thing until he gets big enough that he can kind of walk in. As long as they can stay relatively close, just use the Crunch, use the Bellica to get picks, have the Sevarog walk into the back line, hope your Drongo doesn't get assassinated by Countess or TB, and then I think it should be smooth sailing. But that is a difficult game plan to execute.
All right, well, looking at the draft, Joey, who do you think is going to win?
I think from what we saw from last game, I have to give my vote to Professors, just because in my head, this should be RNR's win, because I think Professors has a very high risk, high reward strategy going for, but we seen they're able to pull that off really well in that first game. So I'm very confident that they're going to be playing to their game strat, and that it's just going for this long range picks with the counters, with the gadget. They have very just pick comp that I think they're going to be able to execute well into this game. And I'm just very concerned about how RNR is going to play into that pick long range comp that Professors is running.
Yeah, especially if they are not where they if RNR is out of where they need to be, they're just gonna get picked out. But Trix, who wins the draft for you?
Yeah, I have to agree with Joe. I think that it's just Professors. They've showed that they're able to execute these kind of high risk, high reward team comps. Violence in the laning phase absolutely dominated Ock, and I think that if that happens again, then it's essentially lights out.
All right, well, let's see where North is gonna go, and if the Professors, they're really capitalizing on that 55 scrims in 20 days. Lance and Crashy, take it away.
All right, we're diving back into game number 2 here at the PCC 5. RNR versus Professors. Professors in the lead, leading the series 1-0. Lance, how you feeling about this one? How you feeling about the draft? I know I'm personally very excited about this Countess jungle here.
I am excited about this as well, and I am a little worried for RNR. I think they may have been relaxing a little bit too much, letting this Grux get through. We've been showing our community art spotlight through all of this. One of our good guys, Captain Plague, or Coach Plague, I apologize. Coach Plague had made a sign that says, "Don't feed the Grux." RNR's definitely not watching our community art spotlight, because that's exactly what they did in the first game, and that's what they're going to have to try to avoid doing in the second game. You saw Violence absolutely take that game over.
Yeah, and the funny thing is I do want to say it's not like it was just Violence getting fed out of the laning phase per se, but more so just the consistent play that got Violence in a lead over the course of the game. They got a pick on Akaram, then there was more roam, there was more influence on the mid and left side of the map from Violence, and then if anybody knows how Grux plays in the off lane, there's just kind of this moment in time where Grux just has Grux brain, and all you do is just shove lane. You just Grux shove the lane, Grux shove the lane, and then you can go and have impact on the other side of the map. So I think we're going to see a lot more of that coming from Violence. But I love the kind of full circle scenario where I've always been against Countess jungle, but but this is actually just like her best role in the game now. So I'm super, super excited to see it. And actually, Nitro not going the crest that I was expecting to see, but is going to be using that Vitality Bead. So Nitro presumably going to be going into a Brimstone Fire Blossom. So we'll have to see how this progresses, as I haven't been kind of current on Countess and Scrims, but I do think that she is a pretty solid jungler. So looking over at the duo lane, we got Survivor and Crazy Fool always being aggressive, the usual.
And Countess doesn't have amazing early game potential as a jungler. Doesn't really have the ability to take that first Fang Tooth right at the level 5 mark. Oh, if she gets first blood just like that, she's going to be able to put him on the board. Nitro's ahead already. North's going to come in here aggro as well. Might be able to pick one, maybe two of them up. But actually, it looks like Finesse was able to get out, and now it's North who needs to be careful. They do not want to give a Countess 2 kills this early into the game. That would pretty much put the nail in the vampire coffin this early. But getting back to what I was saying, she doesn't have the best early game objective control, but later into it, you cannot outsmite her Q into the Fang Tooth into the hunt. There's nothing that is on R&R side that is going to be able to out damage that. So they should have the neutral game advantage in this, which they didn't in the last game and still ended up coming ahead on those neutral objectives. That's not spelling good for R&R.
Professor's burning all of the flashes early on. Nitro stealing a little bit of jungle, but getting the free kill, I think, is pretty much all we really need to see to know that this game is probably going to get out of control from the side of Nitro and the Professors. That Brimstone is going to be in hand whenever Nitro decides to go back to the base here, is going to go ahead and pick up that green. And I love that they're, feeding this over to Nitro. Yeah, funnel it over to Nitro. Get him fed. We do have Akram kind of responding, and North is going to be here as well. Violence not really in a position to help, but I do think that Nitro has his flash. So
smash and grab into the tower, though, maybe?
He have the flash? Oh, I thought he had the flash. Violence. Nice. Able to get him out there. So, okay, good. No biggie. It's all good. No return fire from the side of R&R. Nitro's going to go back, and really, this is where we want to start seeing things get interesting, because, again, that Brimstone is going to be in hand, and we actually have Ooga Booga and Unga Bunga getting a little aggressive here in the duo lane. They might be looking to go over for that gold, so they do have some damage on Survivor and Crazy Fool. We'll see what the response is here.
Yeah, Crazy Fool might just try like one ball, see if he can steal this. Doesn't look like he was able to get it potentially. Kind of hard to tell without that kill feed being available to us or any of the sound while we are in our observer mode. But actually, I don't think I had caught this, but it is back to 1-1 as R&R picked a kill up somewhere in here. Can you tell me where that was, Crashy? Did we miss it?
Not sure. It looks like North does.
North picked one up. Okay.
Kill.
Oh, Finesse must have gone down while chasing back there somehow. Maybe, it was probably the red buff that burnt him down, killed him with the dots from it, which it did look like Finesse was just almost able to get out of there. A good turnaround for North there, although he did have to reset afterwards as Nitro had all of that pressure on him. But this should be the river buffs getting picked up for Finesse, as Crazy Fool is over here to make sure that it's safe, leash it over to him so he picks it up with just one auto. They were standing on a ward though, so R&R is privy to the fact that that happened.
Yeah, and again, Brandon Knight and Finesse, kind of a mirror matchup of game number 1 in terms of this lane. And again, the Gadget just such a strong pick right now. Gideon, such a strong pick right now. But we are going to see maybe some potential action going down in the left-hand side with Crazy Fool and Survivor just constantly pushing. And I think that the interesting part about this, for me, the interesting part about this is that I think that they have so much intention. Oh, no kidding. You were watching the health bars. I missed that entirely. Violence is going to take the solo kill. Now, this is what we can talk about in terms of just really strong getting fed. But look at that. North, Brandon Knight finding a pick in the mid as well. And this is just a back and forth 2-2. I can't say that this isn't a close series, at least.
Yeah, North is really focusing this mid lane, really wants to unlock Brandon Knight, get that roaming advantage that Gideon has over Gadget. Get it established early, get Brandon Knight over to these side lanes, help them potentially take some of this pressure off of Akaram, who is, just got solo killed underneath her tier 2 or underneath her tier 1 tower, has a lot of ground she needs to make up, as once again, this early game pressure that Brooks has is proving to be too much for Sevarog.
Yeah, and one thing that's a little bit interesting to me, I know it's a bit harder to kind of jungle invade in a coordinated, scenario because there's so much more ward coverage and players are just a little bit more, attuned to what's happening around the map. But I do feel like Nitro's just had kind of a free farming scenario for themselves where they've been able to just really rotate around the map and get as much farm as possible, even invading on the Countess. You can see Violence holding Prio here is going to have that level 6 over Akram as well, so can really be aggressive while Nitro just continues to farm. Now, Finesse might find themselves in a bit of a tough situation here, so you do have North showing up again, and Finesse really just doing what they can, and if they fall down, it's okay because the kind of leverage for the side of the Professors is currently in Violence and in Nitro, but that mid laner and that jungler are going to be rotating over. We're going to have to see what happens here.
Yeah, North absolutely feasting off of that first gank he put down into this lane where he burned the blink of the gadget and just repeating. They probably still have about a minute and a half before that blink is going to come up on the side of Finesse as well. So expect to see North over there again, as we're going to see the second Scion buff be donated over to Nitro. They know exactly what they're doing. They know how dangerous a late game Countess can be into this comp. It's going to be able to blow a Gideon up. It's going to be able to blow a Bellica up. It's going to be able to blow a Drongo up. And all they have to do is to get to that point in the game.
Yeah, and again, Finesse kind of taking the brunt of the focus from R&R, but that's okay because we do have Violence getting incredibly big. You can already see Nitro investing in this tower as well. They want to go on ahead and use this. This is kind of their win condition on top of the fact that Nitro is also getting fed, getting a ton of farm, has been invading, and even just looking at the map, I haven't seen Nitro in his own jungle for quite some time. They're really investing in this. Look at this, an 8-minute tower going down, and this is really going to change the pace of the game because now Violence has free reign to just roam around the map. The Basilisk is being built. Akram presumably has a lot less farm, and this might be a tough situation. But Finesse, again, Finesse getting dove in on, but Crazy Fool says, you know what, hey, I'll give you a hand here.
Yeah, and uses the blink pretty much immediately on cooldown. So another 5 minutes of vulnerability will come out for this gadget here, as the crunch just does not want to relent. Staying in this mid lane, continuously ganking this gadget. They want to try to knock that tier 1 down early in response to getting their own off lane tier 1 knocked down and open that map up. We talked about earlier how the Gideon needs to be able to move around, impact these side lanes, stop some of the bleeding that is already happening on the side of R&R. Yes, they are up a kill, but I do not believe that this crunch is as big of a threat as this Grux and as this Countess are at this exact moment in the game.
Yeah, Nitro has the full Fire Blossom, so a tanky Countess that can also do some damage just because she's in the lead is going to be an interesting one. We'll see where they decide to take that build as well. And Finesse, if Finesse can just kind of slow it down or at least keep control of the tower, then I think the Professors are going to be in a very strong position. And again, Violence will most likely be a gigantic part of where the lead for the Professors can potentially come from if they're able to kind of just continuously shove that lane. But North looking for a little bit of jungle invade, and I do think that this is a potentially strong trade here because it does look like the Professors are just going to go straight for this Fangtooth. So if you have to give them the Fangtooth, if you're not really in position where you can fight them or not on that side of the map, at least take something for it. We're going to see North potentially diving out Finesse in the mid lane too. You can kind of see him hugging by that mid tower, and it looks like that might be going down. But for now, Professors, Nitro, they're going to take that first Fangtooth.
Yeah, and they're going to rotate over, try to find North out here by the river buff as well, as this is not where you want to be. If you are R&R, you are at a numbers disadvantage. Survivor's going to use the pew-pew-pews, but it isn't going to be enough to do it, and North's got a little bit of a chunk down onto these guys. Going to press forward into them, but it doesn't look like anybody's going to fall. Actually, Ooga Booga with a fantastic roam to pick 2 of them up, and that's exactly what you're looking for if you're a fan of rest and relaxation, as they're starting to, get a good little lead in kills on this game.
Yeah, R&R really looked to turn this one around. They had the response from the duo lane, and Ooga Booga just comes in at that perfect angle. Is going to find themselves some kills, and I think the total score now in terms of kills was 3-7. So Professors, they might be on the board. They might have that Fangtooth, but Ooga Booga and the team for R&R are going to be getting a little big. He's already got that Vanquisher in hand. Survivor has his Mind Razor, but the potential there is pretty big.
Yeah, 3-0. Got the Ironwood Bow to follow up on that Vanquisher as well. Survivor, interestingly, going the Mind Razor route onto the Twin Blast. Not something you're particularly used to seeing. However, that is going to really pump damage out for him late. It's also going to really help him with this wave clear. Not that Twin Blast really struggles with that anyways, and it's going to be the Mini Prime picked up for Rest and Relaxation, as well as they have these members zoned out. Violence has got to fall back into his tier 1 tower here as 4 members of R&R are dedicated to this side of the map. A little bit of lane proxying coming out of Survivor here, as well as they are looking to take this tier 1 tower over on the left side of the map.
Yeah, the response from the duo lane here is pretty huge. You know, nobody on the side of the Professors falls down in that exchange of them getting the mini prime for R&R, but if they can take down this tier 1 tower, that is really big. And again, when we were calling the first game, it was one of the biggest things that I made note of was the fact that having that tier 1 tower down in the duo lane, that's what really gives you the potential to be passive and dance and play around with your positioning for some of the neutral fights that are going to happen. You know, you're really just looking to be a little bit passive and take your time. But again, look, North, Finesse, they do not want to let this man breathe. North takes him down, finds the kill again, still has that mini prime on him, and R&R is just looking to potentially control the game with a gold lead, hopefully with finding some of these kills. But again, I think Professors are keeping themselves in it and really responding well with some of the tower control that's happening.
I agree that they are. They have 2 towers down to none on the side of R&R already. Are down 6 kills, but they have that Fangtooth advantage. They did lose the first mini prime, but with that gold that comes from those towers, we're probably really close to being knotted up right now. And, you know, Survivor and Crazy Fool are going to make a push for this mid tower as well. Get even more gold onto it. You see Crazy Fool doing the good support thing there, not taking 200 gold away from Survivor. He did that when the tier 1 fell in the duo lane as well. That gets Survivor 400 instead of 200. Crazy Fool doesn't need that gold, as you know, Decker is more or less just a kit, especially at this stage in the game, only 13 minutes, and doesn't need a whole lot of items to do what she does. And, you know, great macro play coming out of Professors. That's something you see from a team that put in 55 scrims in 21 days.
I mean, answer me this, Lance. How do you have a game where a team has 2 kills to 8 and they have all 3 of the tier 1 towers down? I think that this is something that, again, I'm going to specifically go out of my way to talk about, because this is a very, very challenging position to be in for R&R as more and more of these neutral objectives come out. It's going to be incredibly hard to feel like there's any room to move. Nitro, Crazy Fool, and Survivor potentially looking to pinch in on Brandon Knight here. He does still have his portal, but as these objectives start to come out, Professors are going to be the ones that are driving this game. They're going to be the ones that are positioning where they want to position and being able to be passive and take their time. Violence Akram, it looks like this is kind of hit a neutral set point. Is Violence strong enough to take Akram down? No, the Unite, or the ultimate. Oh my goodness, I just said Unite. Look at that. Showing my Pokemon roots. The ultimate coming out from Akram. Violence not able to take him down. Are they going to look to chase? And do you have Finesse coming in here from the mid lane? It looks like they want to try to find some kind of an opportunity. It looks like Finesse is going to get here. It needs to find something. Gets the flash out from Akram and not able to take him down.
Yeah, but so you were talking about the pressure of having those tier 1s be down and the way that it can affect neutral objectives and the way that it can affect fights. We saw Brandon have to take that portal up over that ledge. If that tier 1 tower was still there, Brandon can stay in posture there because the rest of R&R was coming in to try to help him defend. But without that tier 1 tower, there's really nowhere that they can go. That's another stack onto the Countess, and she's going to put North down with the ultimate, escape back as well. Great E out of Survivor in order to dash forward and get away from that. That does give the inside track potentially on this Tooth over to R&R though.
Yeah, and I think that the leverage coming out from Professors over on the right-hand side opened up the map just enough for R&R to get this tier 1 down. Survivor just able to stay alive there. But again, some of these objectives are starting to come out. And again, R&R getting that tower, I actually think is a pretty huge thing for them. That's going to open up the map for them to be able to dance around this Fangtooth, because this is a 15 and a half minute game that's only one Fangtooth down. And now we're going to start pressuring in. Nitro kind of going for a kind of Bruiser Countess build, building into that World Breaker, has the Fire Blossom and actually using a Time Flux ban. So really, really interesting. Not something I was expecting to see. So we'll have to see if we can make note of any of the plays that come out of that. But a potential team fight should be coming up here in the near future, as we do have some of these objectives. Violence and Akram still the brawl that's actually just continuing to happen. It does look like Akram has found their footing in this fight, as it looks like Violence is not quite having the same success that they had in the first game. It hasn't been able to roam as much and hasn't been able to get as many kills. But Finesse, again, trying to get a little bit more open to roaming, but that potentially leaves the door open for R&R, North, and the boys to get into this Fangtooth pit here.
This is going to be big. The Time Flux is going to come out from the Countess, who is going to snap back to her spot. That's going to reset her basic abilities, but we already have Brandonite falling on the side of R&R. Survivor's going to get caught out as well by the Crunch, who is at about half health. Crazy Fool needs to be careful here as well, as he may be falling, but Violence is here to bring his own name, and that's going to be enough to put down the Crunch. The junglers are down for both teams, or the jungler is up for Professors, it looks like, so that should be second Fangtooth coming through for him.
Yeah, looks like I actually think that it's 1-1 in Fangtooth right now. I could be mistaken, but we'll have to take a look at it here in just a bit.
Second Fangtooth of the map, Crashy. Come on.
Second Fangtooth of the map. I got you. I see. Yeah, okay. Yeah, but the Time Flux ban, I actually think worked pretty well there. Not something I've actually used on Countess myself, but able to kind of whip around that corner and dive in, get some free damage in, and then even more so be safe because they have the Q on top of that as well. Violence getting some farm here in the off lane, and this game is pretty even, all things considered. We saw some back and forth with each team getting a Fangtooth and then following that up with kills for the opposing team. And Violence still has this lane completely open. The tier 1 is going to be very solid there, but this is the response from R&R here. Violence in a really tough position.
Yeah, and it looked like Akram actually missed the colossal blow within that fight, but it does not matter, as 2 more members of R&R are going to come through, going to be able to sweep up both Nitro and Violence. So that is a map advantage for R&R, who are going to set their eyes over onto the Mini Prime at this exact moment.
Yeah, Mini Prime going to be potentially going in the hands of North. Finesse went back to base, is going to be jumping over towards this side, see if they can preserve that tier 1 tower. And not too terrible implications from those picks that they found over on the off lane. But for now, North finds that Mini Prime. It does look like Survivor putting the pressure in the off lane, or in the duo lane, finding some extra jungle farm, just doing what they can to kind of rip things away from R&R. And again, you know, 5-10 on, or 5-11 rather, on the kill count, but all things are pretty close. Be excited to see where this one goes as the next set of objectives comes out. About a minute and a half for the big Prime to come out. We won't have a Fangtooth for quite a while. Nitro finding some farm. Everything's just kind of gone back to that default setting here.
Yeah, everyone's hitting close to level 11, getting those second points into their ultimate as well. So really starting to get a lot of damage out of somebody like a Countess, out of somebody like a Twin Blast. But we got to talk about Time Flux Countess for just a quick second, Crashy. We saw Time Flux getting in our last game, and we were kind of questioning whether or not Time Flux was going to come out much today. Playing Time Flux Countess is difficult. It interacts with her Q in a very interesting way, where if your Q is still out, for you to be able to return to the shadow when you get pulled back to your Time Flux position, your Q does not reset because it was still active, and you could jump to your Q if you wanted to. So you got to be careful with the way that you play that. You usually try to use your Time Flux while you know that that's going to go down, so you get the opportunity to have 2 Qs. But Nitro, you know, having kind of a hit and miss game, parts of it looking really, really good, parts of it looking, you know, like he's a Countess and is a little vulnerable every once in a while. But as those passive stacks start to pop up, as he starts to get that magical lifesteal and he pulls another stack just like that, he's going to become even harder to kill. Got the life, or got the world break already, got the Fire Blossom, and moving into the third item, which I expect to potentially be a Megacosm or potentially a Tainted Scepter to deal with some of the healing that's coming out of R&R, which is going to continue to be a problem.
Yeah, unfortunately, we just saw North get, I want to say, a little bit baited by Crazy Fool on the Decker there. It's just so incredibly hard to take a Decker and feel like you have her caught out. But, you know, goes a little bit deep in the jungle, gets taken out from the side of the Professors, and now we have Nitro roaming around. And this is, again, one thing I like to see from the Professors is the coordination they have when they're grouping, when they're kind of roaming around. And you see Survivor is constantly keeping the pressure here, but he also has that backup in the jungle really close by. If anybody tries to roam in, they might be able to potentially push this into a team fight. But on the side of Violence, I'm actually glad we swapped over to that as I was saying that. On the side of Violence, one thing that I do think is important to note is that they have a Bellica on the enemy team, and I think that that's probably a lot better at dealing with the Grux than, say, the Narbash is. So it could potentially be harder for Violence to do the things that they want to do in this game, just diving into the backline and being as much of a menace, because there is that extra layer of CC that, you know, has the potential to stop a lot of players in their tracks. So Bellica actually being used in this game could be a nice addition to R&R's lineup.
Yeah, and the Cavemen for R&R are playing super well. You see 0-7 on Unga Bunga, 5-2 on to Ooga Booga, and you know, there's just not a whole lot you're really going to be able to do to stop a Drongo once he gets to that point. The rad rounds are going to burst you down so fast. It's going to be so hard to be able to like sustain through that and keep yourself alive. However, they are squishy targets, and there is a Countess on this enemy team. It only takes one Q onto a Drongo, even with the silence that makes it hard for Countess. If he can Q you and he can push R on you, he's gonna end up killing you. Nitro's gonna use the time flux band.
Yeah, gets a little bit caught out there, as it does look like he has to use his flash as well. But this is, you know, R&R pushing into potential Tesla Dome territory, and it looks like Professors are looking to push forward. They do have a Decker stun coming out on Akram. Akram has to use a flash as well. Violence not able to get there, so going to get them incredibly low, but no picks coming from either team. It does feel like the Professors were just taking their time, kind of pulling them into the fight, into the section that they wanted to have them in. And now with all of the health lost from R&R, it looks like Professors are going to be pushing themselves in towards the second Fangtooth. So 2 Fangtooths to 1, another neutral objective going towards the side of the Professors. And it feels like they're very slow and steady this game. They have a game plan. They're kind of sticking to it. They find the roams when they want to find them, and then ultimately they're able to set up the fights the way they want to set them up. So the time flux band working out there, but a little bit risky, as it did look like Nitro had to burn the flash. But ultimately, more damage on the side of the Professors towards R&R leads to them getting that Fangtooth.
And you're talking about these teams taking this slow, and if you've gone up against any of these guys in solo queue, if you've gone up against any of them in scrims, if you're one of our other comp players that is watching this, you know that this is very against the typical style of a team like Professors and like a team of R&R, where they are just always looking for kills. Norf is so dang aggressive. Crazy Fool is so dang aggressive. This has been beaten to death, so I apologize to all of you guys for having to hear it again. I subbed for Professors in a match, and I played a pretty good game, and when it was over, I got some feedback from Soul Reaper and from Survivor and from the teammates that I had in there. They're like, yeah, Lance, you did okay. You got a lot of assists, but there were a lot of situations where if we would have had somebody like Crazy Fool in there, he would have pulled the trigger, we would have wiped them, and we would have finished this game 15 minutes earlier. And it's hard not to agree with them, as you see once again a fights popping out over here. Akram needs to be careful. He's going to colossal blow one of them away. However, he wasn't able to peel Violence. Going to get himself into a containment fence as well, and that'll be another kill on Akram. Nitro's going to get another stack as well as he got in there. I don't know who got the kill, who got the assist, but they all count the same if you're Countess, and that should open up the Orb Prime for Professors.
Yeah, they're looking to start it here, and I definitely don't think that the Professors have any problem starting up an objective and then peeling and looking to jump away. Nitro using that ultimate very early just as a form of CC. Ooh, a big knockup coming up from the side of R&R on Bellica, but this was really just a bait. They're not really looking to commit to it unless they can get an additional pick and their health bars are, you know, strong enough for it, and that's what you're seeing from the Professors here. They have 2 picks. That's, you know, more gold, more advantage on their side, but they're just going to back. They're going to go reset. They're going to go set their waves the way they want to, and again, I want to make note of Nitro jumping in and instantly using that ult onto Norf just to lock him down long enough for his teammates to find that pick. So really coordinated play. I think the communication from the Professors is hitting really, really strong here.
And honestly, it's crazy they have 2 tier 1 towers up at 25 minutes into this game. This tier 1 might fall right here. Finesse doesn't have the Tesla Dome in order to be able to stop it, but should have pretty good wave clear with just the Seek and Destroy. And the fact that they have 2 tier 1 towers at the 25-minute mark is nuts. This is a competitive game that's 8-11. There have been 3 Fang Teeth taken. There have been 2 mini primes taken, but they've only gotten 1 of Professor's tier 1 towers down.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, like I said, that it's going to continue to be a problem. It's so incredibly hard to set the lanes, and what's going to have to happen from R&R is they're going to have to just dive in with a lot of conviction. They're going to have to just see a fight in front of them, not really wait to to do the dancing, the poking kind of game, and just dive in and see if they can make something happen. That said, the side of the Professors has a Tesla Dome, and they have Decker CC, and they have the Decker Cage and the stuns, and so it's incredibly hard for something like that to happen, and I think it's incredibly hard to play into this kind of team comp when you are behind.
Yeah, I think it's very difficult, but though Crazy Fool does get himself into a bad spot, good subjugate comes out of Ock there, followed by a big black hole out of Brandonite, and the Professors need to turn and run. However, they're just going to be able to blow Norv up as he's not tanky enough in order to be able to survive it. So that is one member down for Professors, 2 members down for R&R. It looks like we're gonna get a quick internet reset out of Violence as we're having a little bit of DC problems. So an actual full numbers wipe even for them here. Nitro needs to be a little bit careful as Finesse 2 is gonna get picked off as well. And there's a potential that these tier 1 towers start to fall for R&R. So we were talking, it was surprising that those are still up at 25 minutes. However, that means there's a lot of gold on the table for R&R still to claim, and they're staying competitive in this match, even though they are currently behind in those neutral objectives. Those should be easy to take pretty soon in these games as these death timers start to stretch out.
Yeah, I'd say all things considered, losing Violence to a DC or internet reset, blackout, whatever happened, not the worst set of circumstances they could be in right now for the Professors. There's not really a neutral objective that's going to be swung just yet, but I will say, as the lanes are kind of getting set, as people are posturing, the big prime is there. It looks like North and Akaram are going to be jumping on it as as I'm saying that, but also the Fangtooth is coming up as well. So there might be a potential trade that could happen. I don't know if they could even do that fast enough if they don't have Violence, so they're really just going to have to go on the back foot here. Unfortunately, it looks like Professors have lost a lot of momentum to a disconnect, but hey, that's the way the cookie crumbles sometimes. It's often written in esports rules that if we're this deep in a game, we don't remake, so we're just going to have to see how the Professors can kind of deal with this. They're practiced, they're as close to professionals as you can get on a game like Pred, and we'll see what they got here.
Yeah, and I mean, they do have a comp that is good for stalling if they need to do it, but R&R is going to smell that blood in the water. They're looking up. They know that he is, on a little bit of a snooze, and that they need to put their foot on the gas at this moment in order to take this back. They already picked up the Orb Prime. Don't be surprised to see them walk directly into this Fangtooth, as they know they have a numbers advantage at this point in the game, and they know that they're probably going to win these team fights, especially while they're buffed up with the Prime buff.
Yeah, it's tough circumstances, but that said, the Prime buff is not nearly as strong as the Primal Blaze. So if they can get him to potentially start this, if Survivor can stay alive, he has to run out. There might be some turnaround potential if they start it, if they can dive in on him. But that said, they push Survivor out, and North jumping on it instantly. You can see the Ice Corn Talons dropping down just to get that extra damage out. And it looks like R&R is really looking to finish here. We might see some crazy dive in, though. We might see Crazy Full jump in, try to use an ultimate, see if Nitro can do the same. They're going to have to look to potentially make something happen, but Crazy Fool not jumping in just yet. Is going to throw the ultimate. No, nothing there from the side of Professors, but again, they don't have Violence, and this could be a potential game ender here with the double buffs coming out from the side of R&R. So we'll see if there's any kind of response. Violence still not connected back to the game, and you would hate to see it go to a game 3 under these circumstances, but sometimes it happens, and that's why we do play best of 3 series, best of 5 series, depending on the series. But Lance, what do you think's coming up here? It looks like R&R is really in the driver's seat.
If I was in R&R spot right now, I would begin to either start a 4-1 or a 5v5, or a 5-man just death ball. You have to take advantage of this spot. Even though he's been gone for a little bit, if he comes back, he's going to be pretty much even with everybody on the map at this spot because he was so far ahead of it. So they need to capitalize on this. It is unfortunate that it is happening the way that it is, but you can't fault R&R for taking advantage of it. That is what you're supposed to do. Happened pretty late into the game, and now that they have these numbers advantage, they're able to really, really control the macro part of this map. They're able to rotate faster. They're able to not worry about side lane pressure or having to rely on sending 2 people to answer the Rhino.
I hate to say it because Pinzo beat me to the joke, but I was waiting for you to finish talking so I can say we need to get Violence a hotel room ASAP. We need to see if we can get them back in the game. But unfortunately, again, R&R are really looking to siege here. They've completely taken over the game ever since Violence DC'd and has not able to get back into the game. So we'll have to get an update. Presumably, this game is going to be going over in the side of R&R, but who knows? This is the professors we're talking about. Maybe Survivor and folks are crazy enough to 4v5 it, but it's looking pretty bleak here.
It is not over until it is over indeed. However, that is gonna be the second inhib that is gonna fall. Crazy Fool's got to look out. Subjugate is gonna go wide, but all 5 members of R&R are inside the base of the professors now, looking to capitalize. Violence starts moving. He's back. We got him to a Holiday Inn. There's still a chance for professors.
La Quinta coming in clutch. R&R have not ended the game just yet. Violence is back, chilling in the hotel room. Obviously, we're kidding, but we'll have to see if there's any kind of a way that there can be a turnaround. There's only, 2 inhibs down. Presumably, the buffs are falling off here shortly. So the game is quite literally not over, but it is a very tough position to be in if you're the professors.
It is, however, that is going to give them a potential chance to let Violence catch up. If he catches 2 or 3 of these super minion waves, the experience that he's going to get from it may be able to make a difference. You see, he is still only 1 level below his offlane or his jungler here. Would have liked to see Nitro get out of the way there, give Violence that full amount of, XP, but, the game is back on. Now that Violence is back, I would have hated to see it end like that. Even if they end up losing this game, at least they will be at full strengths for it. Nobody ever wants to see that, but that's the beauties of live Twitch television, baby.
Twitch television is where we reside. Make sure you join the Discord if you're ever looking to find a competitive community as well. But this game's still going on, and we'll probably have a prime buff coming up soon. They're going to set the lanes the best they can. But again, now the same thing we've been talking about, the professors having those tier 1s up, having the ability to keep the wave set in their favor, is now with the professors back against the wall because they have 2 inhibs down. So that same sentiment, I think you're going to have to start a fight hot and heavy. You're going to want to look to dive in, maybe find a pick if you can. You can only dance it for so long, but you're going to have the discipline between setting the waves, splitting off and going where you need to go to keep the core safe, but also not giving up an objective for free. So the professors, they are quite at the bottom of a very big mountain, and they've got a long way to the top.
Yeah, but the amount of time we keep harping on it, I'm going to talk about it for as long as Professors is in this tournament. 55 scrims in 20 days. They have played in these scenarios. They have been behind. They have had level disadvantages. They've lost their inhibs. They will not give up. They've been in these spots. They know how to play against it. However, have they played against it against people that are as high quality players and as smart of players as these members of R&R? There is a reason they are our 2 seed. They beat Professors in our group stage to claim the 1 seed over the 2 seed, which is how Professors ends up as our 7 after they beat Noko in our seeding round. These guys have played against each other a lot. These players know each other very well. And if anybody's going to be able to pull this off, I would say it is Professors.
Nitro has to kind of back up. Survivor has to back up. Unfortunately, losing Crazy Fool very quickly there. The Professors in a very tough position. Violence not able to stay alive. It does look like that Tesla Dome coming down, and Nitro trying to chase off North if they can is going to queue back up to the top of the ledge. And so a little bit of back and forth, but 2 for 1 in favor of R&R, and they do still have North alive. So the potential for them to kind of push and maybe make something happen on objective is there, as well as the core being pushed. Survivor has to go back to the base and really clean out this wave. But again, if he can do so now, the timers aren't super long. This actually could be the kind of walking it back, walking it forward, coming back that the Professors need, because that was an opportunity for R&R to make something big happen. They actually lost a player and they had to reset themselves. So we'll see what the Professors can do. They've set out that left lane just a little bit, and they're going to have to continue to dance here because now Akram, North, R&R, they're on top of the prime.
I don't believe there's going to be too much contention coming out. Maybe a Tesla Dome, maybe North trying to get in here, or not North, I'm sorry, Nitro trying to get in here with the time flux ban, but they need to be careful. They can't afford to have anybody really fall down, and that is not great. Nitro's got to turn tail and run out of here. Gonna ult to try to get some magical lifesteal and stay alive, but that's gonna be Nitro falling early. Survivor's got to kite backwards as well, but the damage is coming out and he gets stuck in a spot and just gets blown up. That's Orb Prime over for R&R, and once again put themselves into the driver's seat of this game. 50 seconds on the Countess's timer still. That should be a primal Fang Tooth pick up for R&R as well. Double buffed up again on this Saturday afternoon, and probably going to be able to push the base down.
Yeah, I mean, the double buffs is basically, that's all you need. It's basically GG at that point. And unfortunately, Nitro, I mean, if you look at the circumstances, Nitro really didn't have much of a choice. They kind of had to dive in there, had to see if they can get it. And I want to say it was even probably pretty close, because shortly after Nitro died, the Prime went down, or at least the visuals resolved, and we could see that the Prime went down. Unfortunately, Survivor falling as well, that's going to create quite a window for R&R to push here. We do have the inhibs back up, and Gadget's great at kind of stalling and buying a little bit of time. They might be able to core stall here a little bit longer, but we do have to see if the Professors can get both members of their team back up and see if there's any chance that they can just continue to stall. Grux has amazing wave clear as well, but this left inhib is going to most likely fall. The middle inhib will probably refall as well, as it looks like they are pushing that right inhib. So Professors, can they be aggressive here? North getting picked out, maybe finds a Nitro ultimate on top of them, but no, not able to stay alive, and it does look like that team is R&R pushing forward, finds the picks. Crazy Fool going to presumably fall as well. The follow-up on the Survivor, not able to stay alive. Can he do it? Yes, he does, but the waves are going to be pushing. The Primordial Blaze is going to be there, and the damage is most likely going to be overwhelming onto the core.
Yeah, and you got to remember that those two inhibs weren't shooting as well, so not a lot of help with them defending it. Only two members of Professors back up, and the focus is on to the core for R&R. Actually, a little bit of life left for Professors here. We're going to see Crazy Fool come back in just a couple of seconds here. Violence is about 10 seconds away from coming back to life as well, but it may be too little too late. They're going to get maybe one opportunity to defend this base, but if this one doesn't go well, now that 3 inhibs are done, this will be it if Professors cannot defend. Tesla Dome is not up. In order to be able to clear this wave, the Colossal Blow is going to come on to Survivor, who's going to have to go back, and that's going to be game 2. Claim for rest and relaxation. We got another game 3, baby.
Yeah, I mean, an unfortunate set of circumstances that get us to the game 3, because you just don't know how it would have gone if Violence hadn't DC'd. I mean, I quite literally think Violence DC'd, had a tier 1 up, Violence comes back, and 2 inhibs are down. So what could potentially be a completely different game. But hey, the series is tied 1-1, and I actually want to note that play at the end from the Professors. They had the entire R&R team sieging the 3 different inhibs, and they tried to make a play on the left inhib. They tried to see if they could find a pick on North, see if they could get him out there, and just see if they could find something. Unfortunately, they weren't able to do so.
Yeah, it's interesting to see as well if they're going to change any sort of strategies, if they're going to potentially run this back, because like you were saying, I don't necessarily feel like it was a broken comp, and I don't feel like there was anything particularly wrong with the way that they were executing up until that point. Had a little bit of unfortunate fall their way, and we got our series knotted up 1-1 once again. This next match is going to be for elimination. Loser goes home, winner plays tomorrow. We're going to throw it back to our dog and the desk, and then we'll be back for game 3 with me and Crashy.
Thank you so much, Crashy and Lance. Oh my God, Rest and Relaxation has come back from vacation, no longer resting and no longer relaxing. You have to give it up for the Professors to be, to be able to defend with what they have while Violence was out of the picture. But Trix, talk to us about game number 2.
Yeah, obviously it is really sad to kind of see a team that is doing relatively well get a DC, but looking at the early game, we saw Violence performing in that offlane again. R&R went back to the Sevarog pick. I really hope in the third game they don't go back to that same strategy, because you tried it once, sure, maybe whatever. The second game, it's no longer a fluke at that point. Grux just beats Sevarog, but the duo lane of R&R was deathless. Ooga Booga Unga Bunga absolutely performed that game.
Got to give it up to them. But what about you, Joey? Tell us about the match.
Yeah, there was some really interesting plays being made that game. I think North was again getting really aggro at one point. He was trying to look from a dive on T1 behind, and he just literally just got ulted by counter stun by Deco. Just like it's just a lot of those plays that seem like it's still happening by R&R, and those are the kind of plays that will cost you the game in the long run. So it's just like I think R&R can perform really well. They just need to stop getting these really aggressive plays because it seems like half the time they try to do these plays, it's not working out as they think they should.
Trix kind of mentioned maybe they like earlier we kind of saw someone give Grux a hotel room because Violence disconnected for like I don't even know however many minutes, but the Nitro was just everywhere with Countess. How can they like answer back to Professor's strategy, Trix?
Yeah, the Countess jungle, it did a good job. I would have liked to see, maybe a little bit more damage, especially later. Like Joe mentioned, we saw a lot of CC going down onto North. We saw the Countess stun, we saw the Grux stun, but he's living the whole time. They CC him, they dump their whole kits on him, and then the duo lane just comes in. North's still, half health after that? Knocks people up. Ooga Booga, Unga Bunga come through, bring the damage. It's just, the Countess didn't seem to do as much as I would have liked it to do, especially with the ability to kind of, you have this high damage assassin. Nitro built her tanky, which, the build varies depending on what the game state is and what you need from the character. But it didn't seem like it brought a whole lot to the table in these kind of late game team fights.
Anything else you'd like to mention, Joey, before we go for a break?
Yeah, I think they should have just committed to the regular counts build because it seems like they're doing the fairy pick comp, but it's just you can't pull that off as well if that counts as tank. I don't think Count should be taking that game. They literally just try to blow up people. She has more enough damage on their own. As soon as one other person throw their like damage, it's just that person still leader. So I think if they want the Count jungle again and want to commit to like high damage, quick pick comp, they want to just make counts honestly just like a regular assassin at that point.
All right, well, you heard it here, chat. That's not the Countess build. Do not build that. But before we go for the break, I just want to mention tomorrow is our third place match and grand finals to see who are the biggest Giga Chat gamers who will win and take part in the $3,500 prize pool. So don't go anywhere tomorrow. Cancel whatever you have, booked or scheduled because 11 in the morning, Eastern Standard Time, we're going to be seeing you here again today. But let's go ahead and take a quick break.